If you're looking for a tomato sauce recipe that doesn't require special equipment, lots of time, or a rigid list of ingredients, stick around because I'm going to share how you can make your own tomato sauce recipe using just a cheese grater. And we'll also pressure can together, and I'll show you how not scary but actually fun that process is too. But before we start canning, make sure your equipment is in working order, and I've left a link in the description box below showing you exactly how to do that. And if we haven't met, hi, I'm Cassandra. Welcome to my channel. I describe myself as a woman with one foot on both sides of the grass. By day, I work a full-time job outside of my home, but by night you can find me digging my hands in the dirt or dough, cultivating homestead skills around our 1/8 of an acre townhouse lot. So if you're a fellow homestead dreamer, please consider subscribing. And I'd also like to connect over on Instagram, where I post daily about the many happenings on my micro homestead, whether it's in my garden or in my kitchen. All right, let's get to the recipe. You'll need a canning jar lifter and funnel, canning jars of your size preference. I'm using quarts, a large grater, canning rings, canning lids, a cutting board, sharp knife, a large pot, and your pressure canner. Mine is a 1960s pressure canner passed on to me named Edna, a blender with a pour spout, onions, garlic, Italian seasoning, fresh or dried herbs, and I'm adding a little heat to this sauce, so I have some jalapenos and Tuscan peppers, along with black pepper, and of course your tomatoes. This is about a 22-pound box I picked up from the farmer's market. They're locally grown and organic and so delicious. You'll first start by thoroughly cleaning your tomatoes. I use a natural homemade veggie spray to clean away dirt while I also inspect the condition of each tomato. Next, using a sharp knife, slice the ends off of the tomatoes. If you don't need or want to process all of your tomatoes at once, here's the part where I only cut what I plan to process for that day. This way I can spread out processing over a few days before the tomatoes spoil. Here's a look at the setup that I like to use. You want to have your cutting board, which will hold your tomatoes, and close to that your manual grater placed inside of a large bowl. You'll also want another large bowl and strainer duo, which we'll use to separate the tomato juice from the sauce, and a final container for your tomato skins. Starting at the cut end, grate tomatoes on the largest holes of your grater over a medium bowl until all that's left is the flattened tomato skin and stem. Don't forget to save those skins. We're going to dehydrate them in a few minutes to create our very own instant tomato soup powder. Nothing goes to waste. Once your grated sauce bowl begins to fill, you'll want to pour the liquid into your strainer to separate the sauce from the juice. I prefer a thick sauce, so I try to drain out most of the liquid. Now we'll take our sauce and pour that into our stock pot over medium-high heat. And if you're wondering, I took the sliced ends of the tomatoes and bagged them for fresh eating in our salads and sandwiches for the week. While my sauce was coming to temperature on the stove, I grabbed some pint-sized canning jars to pour the tomato juice into. Move over V8 splash, fresh tomato juice cannot be beat. I love using tomato juice for broths, cocktails, or just fresh drinking. Next, I add a tiny pinch of salt to each jar. Now this is completely optional but recommended for best flavor. And that's it. I added my lids and rims to the jars and pressure canned them for 15 minutes. Now let's hop back to the sauce because things are starting to heat up. I'm cutting some yellow and red onion into thick chunks just small enough to fit into my blender. Next, I honestly just added the remnants of several almost empty pepper jars that were in the fridge. Plus, I wanted a spaghetti sauce option that had a spicy kick to it. Oh yeah, garlic. Tons of garlic. As you can see, friends, we haven't used a measuring cup once, and I love that. As long as you're not adding oil or dairy, season however you like. Now, I prefer to blend everything because it ensures an even texture between the sauce and the added vegetables and gives you that store-bought smooth consistency you may be used to, but of course, better tasting because it's homemade. All right, we're now going to add our flavoring agents to the pot. But warning, this is where the kitchen fills with delicious aromatics. Oh, this smells so good. Now, you'll want to make sure that things are thoroughly incorporated, so spend a little time stirring things around. The sauce will darken as it continues to simmer, which is the perfect time to add your seasonings. I'm adding some Italian seasoning here. We're about 20 minutes into the simmering process here, and you can tell how quickly your sauce visually comes together and deepens in its flavor profile. Don't judge me, y'all, but I felt that I needed to add some more heat to this, so I did go ahead and pile on some chili flakes and a tinge of salt. And because I have Southern cooking roots, a teaspoon of sugar because that's just what we do, and a bit more black pepper. Yes, now this sauce was just right. Now you don't have to do this next step, but it's just been my preference, so I'll share. I really prefer a smooth sauce, so once my sauce has cooled a bit, I'll transition it to my Ninja blender to finely puree. Next, I use a funnel to pour the pasta sauce into jars, leaving about an inch of headspace. You can use the rims on your canning jars as a quick measure. Alright, our sauce is almost ready for the canner, and honestly, here's the part in canning where I have so much anticipation to enjoy these at a later date down the road. I really liked how this spicy sauce turned out, but before that, we've got to add a teaspoon of lemon juice to each jar to ensure safe acidity, and as such, only use store-bought lemon juice because it has a consistent pH. Okay, I don't want to confuse you, but I'm reusing this container, which actually has white distilled vinegar in it that I purchased in an extra large size. But what you'll want to do is dab a bit of vinegar using a clean towel to ensure the jars are free from any sauce and don't have any cracks. Debris on jars or small chips or cracks can prevent proper sealing, and we don't want that. While you can reuse your canning rings, make sure you have new lids as you use the fingertip tight method to close your jars. And this just means that you're not looking to use the strength of your wrists as you screw the rims on. Rather, the pressure from your fingertips is all that it takes. This allows the lids to have room to vent as they process, which creates the seal. Let's move to our pressure canner. My canner is a dial gauge canner. So what I do first is place the rack in and then add enough warm water to cover the jars at around a quarter of their height. And this is where I like to use my electric kettle to heat or warm the water. You pretty much want to match the temperature of the food that's in your jars. Next, turn on the heat so that you can bring your pot to a boil, and then you'll close the lid to your canner. At this part, you want to ensure that your lid is closed and locked, so look for the markings on your canner. Your canner won't reach temperature if the lid is not securely closed. Keep in mind that the processing time does not start until the pressure cooker vents a steady stream of steam for 10 minutes. And here's what to look and listen for. Once you reach this point, you'll add your weight and watch for the pressure to build as indicated by the dial. And once it does, then the timer begins. I usually use the timer on my phone or even on my oven. You'll process quarts for 40 minutes and pints for 35 minutes. If you're like me and working with a glass stovetop, please know that glass stovetops are more temperamental than gas stoves when it comes to regulating the pressure, so be sure to keep an eye on your pressure throughout the full duration of the processing time. You can see here that the pressure is slowly coming back down after I've cut the heat at 40 minutes. Now once your jar is finished processing, make sure you cut the heat and allow the canner to completely cool to touch. Lift the lid away from your face so that any remaining steam doesn't burn you, and then you'll place and cover the jars with a towel for 12 hours. As your jars cool, you'll hear the lids making clicking pops as they seal. To confirm the lids were sealed, remove the ring and tap on the lid. If it pops back up, your jar isn't sealed. When the lids seal, they become concave, and most of your jars will seal within a few hours of cooling. But if you do have a jar or two that didn't seal, just store them in the fridge and enjoy within a week or so. If you've never dehydrated tomato skins, here's what they'll look like if you do. These are perfect to throw in soups and stews, or you can pulse the skins into a powder and use to add a tomato flavor to a dish. I like to use it in my salad dressing recipes or as a popcorn topping. Congrats, you did it! Now you have jars of delicious tomato sauce and tomato juice to sit in your pantry for months to come. To see more of my canning videos, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon.